welcome back to Less Lethal Contingencies. Alan here with another episode of the Experimental Zone. Okay, we're doing some continuing testing today, and this time we're going to do some high pressure air testing of um, the modified Birdcage, where I had taken a round file and oblonged the holes in the Birdcage and kind of opened them up to allow more flow, right? More flow. We just finished some testing with CO2 and we have seen some consistency gains, okay? And again, this is not for everybody to do. I just happen to have a spare part and I figured why not give it a try since I can't order the one at Home Defense 24. They do sell a spacer, a modified spacer. That's what they're calling it, is a spacer for the Pistelle X-68 at homedefense24.com. However, since they don't ship to the States, and I don't know how long it's going to be before AR gets a hold of any, ART, to sell, I figured why not? I had a spare part, and I figured, let me give it a whirl. I love experimenting with stuff, so I figured give it a try. We'll get some data anyways and see, see if it's even worth it. But it is what it is. So I've been testing this and trying to see if I could get some gains, and there definitely appears to be some gains seen. Less Lethal Italia channel is actually, he's got one of those Home Defense 24 ones and spacers, and he's definitely getting a gain in consistency, especially with CO2, 12 gram CO2 in a handle. Also 3 to 4 joules as well across the board, and just making more, having greater consistency across a spread of, in his case, 5 shots, but even probably in 6 shots. So he's seeing really good gains with the Home Defense 24 product. I figured, why not? I had a spare part. No big deal. Let me see if I can make one, right? Let me see if I can do my own modification. So I did, and it's been running. It's been running pretty good. Been fighting a few O-ring issues because that part is a little old. There could be some wear where the inner O-ring is inside that Birdcage that I modified. So I may be struggling with some of the O-rings that I'm putting in there, keeping them sealed. So, but be that as it may, we're going to continue testing with it. We just finished testing factory Birdcage versus the modified Birdcage that I modified using the SSD Slim Power mod. I just finished doing that round of testing, so that should be up shortly here. By the time you see this, it'll probably already be up. So we'll have some data to see what differences we saw there. I will warn you right now, it might be a little bit long because I did run into some O-ring problems on the second part of that test that I had to overcome first, but I did. Anyways, this is, like I said, this is an experimental zone video. So, it's expected we're going to work through some problems. We're going to troubleshoot some problems as well. So hopefully you like that sort of thing. If it's too much, you can always fast forward or, watch one of the shorts, I suppose. But anyway, so what we're doing now on this one is I still have my 7-inch barrel, okay? 686, 685, 686. It's a 685 stainless steel barrel that I honed out a little bit so that I could be able to run 684. Well, 684 wouldn't be an issue, but I could run 685 if I wanted to. Okay, so we're using that same 7-inch barrel on today's test under HPA. However, I am going to swap out the Recon muzzle brake right here. I'm going to swap this out for the Reaper, the MCS Reaper. Okay, we will be using the same 10 gram air tactical joules because these sort of tests, I got to use something that's bore matched ammo. Okay, my 7-inch barrel consists of a 4.5-inch stainless steel barrel, okay, and another 2.5-inch extension. Okay, so that's what that consists of. So we're going to take off the Recon muzzle brake, and let's make sure this is good and tight. Let's take off the comp, slide that off. I'm gonna make sure this is good and tight in here first. All right. Normally I don't have to take it all apart to take that off, but that muzzle brake was on a little more snug than I usually put it. So we're good and tight right there. We will slide our compensator back on, and this is the reason why I don't screw it together. I don't need to, because I always finish it off with either this particular muzzle brake, the Recon, or I'll use the Reaper, or I have another one too, actually. Let me take the Reaper off of my Intrabuster Gen 2, sitting over here. That's for another test. All right, so we have the 6-inch MCS Reaper suppressor. Does not suppress noise. However, it does usually give you a nice little boost in feet per second, and it looks pretty cool. So, all right. So we got that on there. That's what it looks like. And today, in this particular test, I have switched over. I've been having a lot of issues with my version 1 Home Defense 24 short tuning ASA. Been having, when I say I've been having issues, mainly what I mean is I've been having bolt stutter and auto fire issues, even under CO2 conditions. Now I'm able to mitigate most of those auto fire problems that I have with that ASA, because it has much larger holes in it. So that's more than likely what's causing the issue, is just crazy massive flow coming in, especially when I'm using slide check regulators. So I'm able to mitigate a lot of that by adding a tank extender to kind of add some restriction in that airflow of that path. And that helps fine. However, I couldn't really do a heck of a lot to mitigate the problem under CO2. I did come up with the best possible plug I could so I could run it on CO2, but I still had auto fire problems. So I'm probably going to end up ordering the version 2 short one, because I definitely like that short. I like the length on it. I like being able to swap out, use it plugged, and then also be able to use it with HPA. And it does have a larger volume. It does give you more power usually. So I'll probably end up ordering another one, just the newer version with the smaller holes. So for this test, what we're going to be doing, since I have a version 2 HD24 long tuning ASA, we're going to be running this one, and this one's got the smaller holes, but I still like to add some restrictions. So I throw a washer in the back here just to kind of, and that's mostly because I'm using slide check regulators, not pin valve tanks regulators. So you get a huge inrush of air that will overcome the spring's ability, and then you end up with auto fire or stutter. So to hopefully prevent that, and so far so good, I'll throw a washer in there as well. But it's not as much of a problem with the long version 2 as it's been with the short version 1. For any of you guys that have been living through that kind of problem, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to do the test today with the large or the long ASA version 2. We'll be running the 10-gram joules, because we want something that's bore matched. I am not making the mistake again like I did the other day and running these Sumo rounds that, yeah, they're 11 grams, but they're not 684. They advertise them as 684. No way. They're like 680 to 681 maximum. And they are awful unless you happen to have a 683 barrel, which I don't have. So yeah, I mean, they're good for plinking. They're good for having fun, having fun shooting stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad ammo. I'm just saying it's not bore matched to what my needs are. And I would have never actually bought them if they didn't advertise them as 684. So anyways, little annoyed by that whole thing, as you can tell. But anyways, I'm not knocking the brand. I'm not knocking necessarily the ammo. I'm just saying what I am knocking is don't advertise something as 684 and then, it's barely 681. So It's you know, that's the part that is disappointing. Let's put it that way, disappointing. So yeah, so we got the Reaper, we got the 7-inch barrel, we have the Reaper on here, we have the long ASA on the back. We're going to be using 850. It's a soft 850. Okay, high pressure air. Again, it's got the slide check regulator built in, so my on and off is built in. It's not a pin valve tank. Okay, so this one here is an 8 CI tank, and it's an 850, but it's a little soft. It's somewhere in between 800 and 850 would be the output on this. We are up to capacity, 3,000 capacity on this tank. Okay, so the first part of the test with the factory, yeah, it's the factory one I have in it, will be the factory Birdcage, okay, using this tank. And then the second part of the test, we'll do another 6 rounds using another similar tank, and yet again, it's another soft 850. It's between 8 and 850. Honestly, both these tanks, when I check them on my gauge, my test gauge, they're coming in about 800 PSI. So that's, you know, and this one is a 9 CI tank, okay? Either one of these tanks, even though they're small, definitely are not going to start seeing a drop off into your second mag, and we're only running 6 rounds for each test, so 1 mag for each test, so should be pretty fair. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and air this up with this tank here. Oh, did I show the other tank? The other tank is also at capacity. Okay, 3,000 capacity. All right, all things equal, as best as we can do. So factory Birdcage is installed with the long ASA. Okay, Pistelle X-68. That good and tight, good and tight. So adjust this thing. All right, feels pretty good right there. That's what she looks like. Okay, gonna go ahead and air it up. I got the cranny set to feet per second over there. Let's go ahead and air this up. I already pre-lubricated it. Okay, that sounded good. No leaks. Again, no sound after you air it up is a good sound. As long as the bolt activated. All right, so that looks good. This one is pretty loud under HPA. So I will put my air plugs in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 10 gram there. I'll put some air plugs in, protect my hearing. Yeah, this one will definitely ring my ears under high pressure air. And we'll shoot off 6 of these AR Tactical 10 gram joules. And I'll just be calling out the feet per second, and since we're going to use this cranny here. All right, turn the laser on. Okay, we are aired up. And let's not forget to load it this time, Alan. Six rounds. All right. 10 gram ammo. Factory Birdcage. 7-inch barrel. Long HD24 long ASA. And we're going to call it 800 PSI. Let me back up a little bit here. All right. Shot 1. 464 feet per second. Shot 2. 453.6 feet per second. Shot 3. 447.1 feet per second. Shot 4. 448.1 feet per second. Shot 5. 445.3 feet per second. And the last one, shot 6. 450.3 feet per second. All right, so that is the factory Birdcage performance. Okay. That was 6 rounds of the AR Tactical joules, the 10-gram joules, I should say. All right, what do we end up using on this? Let's unscrew it and see. We're going to put a fresh bottle on here anyways. I got the other 800 tank we're going to put on for the second part of the test, just to make sure that everything's as accurate as we can have it. All right, so we started with 3,000. She's an air hog with that long ASA. That's a lot of volume. So yeah, we started at about 3,000 and we're just hovering over 1,000 capacity left in this tank. So at this point, it wouldn't take much. Maybe after the first shot, the next would start diminishing. And by diminishing, I mean our feet per second would start to naturally drop because we're running out of capacity to maintain that 800, 850 PSI. So it would start behaving more like what you see with CO2. So, but we're good. We got the 6 shots. That's what we needed. I have another 800 tank right here that we will be using. It's similar in size. It's 1 CI larger, but like I said, we're not gonna, we're not looking at getting more than 3 mags out of this. We're just gonna do 1 more mag. So, and this tank indeed is also full. Okay, 3,000 capacity. So we'll be using that. I am gonna go dig out my ammunition out of the trap really quick because I don't want to run a risk of breaking any ammo in the next part of this test, because when they collide in the trap, they tend to crack. So I'm gonna do that. See if I can. Oh, here's one over here, and it's 5, 6. We'll reset the trap while we're at it. Man, this thing's getting all, it's from it flopping back or hitting the plastic, and it's just buggering up the arrow backing material, but it's holding up good. I mean, it's holding up pretty good considering. I mean, I've been hitting that with as high as 154 joules, so I mean, that I haven't punched through it yet. Haven't popped through it. Let's get that set back up. Clean off this ammo. And yeah, so the second part of the test, naturally we're going to swap out the factory Birdcage and put in the modified Birdcage that I my hat for the modified Birdcage, I guess you could say. All right, let's check over the ammo really quick. Everything looks good. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like this stuff better than the hammer rounds. I like the iron infused stuff because it doesn't warp. Like sometimes the plastic around the steel balls, it'll crack, and I had a couple of them actually do that, and I didn't notice. It just started this like crack and like a hairline crack, and it was swelling up, and I was getting a hell of a stink through the barrel. Those things must have been getting really hot running through the barrel like that. And yeah, especially for testing, when you're doing testing like this, the iron infused stuff, I really prefer it. I mean, I know not everybody agrees with me. A lot of people like a steel ball in there, but the iron infused gets the job done. I mean, if I'm looking at busting up cinder blocks and stuff, I'll just use steel ball bearings, I guess. Or maybe you'd use those. But yeah, I like these. Like I think I said before, I've been shooting these for a while now, and I think I've had 2 or 3 crack on me, and they were always well over 80 joules, and I suspect it happened in the target box, the target trap, because that's where I found the ammunition anyways, when it was cracked in half. So probably coming in contact with each other. So otherwise, I think this is really good ammunition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so we got all those. All right, let's take the ASA off. Double check, make sure there's no air in here. There shouldn't be naturally, because one of the benefits of the slide check is it totally degasses. When you pull it off, it totally degasses the whole marker. Oh, there we go. All right. We take the long ASA off, which is looking pretty good. So far, these orange urethane O-rings have been working out really good, holding up good. Haven't lost one yet. Knock on wood. Where's the wood? We find some wood to knock on. But so far, they've been working pretty good. And we're going to take the factory Birdcage, the unmodified one is what I should say. They're both factory Birdcages, except for I monkeyed around with one of them. I modified one of them using a round file and just kind of opening up the circular holes in this air plenum here. And so there's the factory, okay? And here is the other one that I opened up and modified. Okay. So you can see the difference. All right. I didn't go overboard, a little crazy. You know, I just kind of opened it up. It probably doubled the size of that opening on each one. Make sure my bumper is still in there. It looks like it is. All right. Okay. So we are going to take the modified Birdcage, okay, and we are going to put her in there, and then we are going to reinstall the HD24 long tuning ASA, and probably don't need to pull the trigger this time. The bolt never came out far enough to really reset that for you. Wipe it down a little bit. Now, unless I continue to have O-ring woes with the specifically the inner O-ring on my modified Birdcage, I've had to replace it a couple times. I don't know if there might be a nick or some kind of defect in that O-ring groove. I suspect as much. I may have buggered it up months ago, fishing out an O-ring one time with the wrong tool. So I don't know if that could be causing some of my problem with the O-rings not holding up, or what it is. But in any case, I've been replacing them as I suspect them, suspect that they're leaking. I've been replacing them. So, all right. So we got the modified Birdcage in there. We are going to take our freshly pumped 3,000 capacity tank. This is an 800/850 tank, just like the other one. It is indeed 1 CI larger. However, it's not going to matter because all we're shooting is 6 rounds out of this, okay? That is all we are shooting out of it. Just to get a second, some data and be able to stare and compare, if you would, okay? Be able to compare the difference. Just that. All right. So what she looks like. Okay. Again, we get the 7-inch barrel, 685, 686, called 686. The 6-inch MCS Reaper suppressor does not suppress sound, but does give you a little bump anywhere from, I don't know, I've been seeing anywhere from maybe 8 to 12 joules as for a bump. It depends on the length of my barrel I'm using it with, what pressures I'm using it with. But it's been giving me a little bit of a bump. So, all right, we're going to air it up, unloaded, which is always wise idea. Air it up on 800, what I'm going to call 800 PSI. All right. So far, so good. I'm not hearing any leaks. It could have been, it may not even have been. It might have been that other. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's, you go back and forth with O-ring woes, especially when you're experimenting with stuff. And that's what we're doing today on the experimental zone. We're doing more experimenting. Okay. All right. So we're aired up. Everything sounds good. Hopefully it remains that way. I'm going to put my ears back on and we're going to shoot 6 more rounds. I'm going to call out the feet per second and I'll update the video as usual. And yeah, we'll see if there's any difference. You know, again, under HPA, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't really see much of a difference, or maybe a little bit of increase in feet per second, maybe. But I don't know if I'm expecting it or not. Really, I see that modification to the Birdcage really shining more under CO2 use, when you're using CO2 in the handle. You know, by the way, the CO2 has to come in from the handle chamber and expand into that inner Birdcage, that air plenum. I don't know that I really, like I said, I'm not expecting a lot of, but if we get something, I'll be pleasantly surprised. You know, hopefully we don't get less. If we get less, then obviously I won't use it moving forward. But we'll see. We'll see what the data says. The data doesn't lie. So as long as we can get through a test without a leak, we'll be doing fine. So, and hopefully that's what we do. Again, we're going to be running the AR Tactical joules, the 10 gram joules. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here. That's all we're going to be running. With our laser. 7-inch barrel, completed off with, finished off with the Reaper suppressor. 800 PSI, and the long tuning ASA. All right, 10 gram ammo. Here we go. All right, this is the modified Birdcage. Modified Birdcage, 10 gram ammo, 800 PSI, high pressure air. Shot 1. 463.5 feet per second. Shot 2. 448.4 feet per second. Shot 3. 446 feet per second. Shot 4. 445.4 feet per second. And it should be shot 5. Shot 5. 452.8 feet per second. And the last one, shot 6. 454.2 feet per second. And that, my friends, is the test. Okay. That ran good and strong. Yeah, no complaints there. Got all 6 shots off, no leaks that time. So I'm kind of psyched about that. Didn't battle any leaks. Yeah, ran good and strong. We'll see what the numbers say. We'll see what the data says as far as if we see any value in running this modified, that I modified myself. Now I can't necessarily compare this to the Home Defense 24's modified, professionally, commercially modified Birdcage, but what they call a spacer, modified spacer. But since I can't get my hands on one, or else I'd buy one, because I think it's like $30. It's not like it's going to break the bank or something. Of course, then you got the overseas shipping and all that baloney. But AR, if you're out there, buddy, Art, if you can stock these, I definitely would be interested in buying one. I think for CO2 use, they would be helpful. But in the meantime, I can rock this homemade one that I made anyways, and at least it gives us something to test with. Yeah, it's not identical by any means, but the theory's sound. You know, if you're going to reap a benefit from it, consistency wise, or maybe a few more joules, then you know it should work either way. And that's the other point too, is the gun does operate normally. You know, I haven't had any malfunctions by running it this way. I haven't seen any loss of power either. That's more than you can say for when you experiment with springs, bolt springs. I've had issues where guns have lost power by me changing the spring, or even created auto fires, worse auto fire than I normally had by changing, you know, the spring. So with this, I haven't seen any negatives so far, but we'll see what the data says as far as if it's worthwhile, especially on HPA, because it may not be worthwhile to do on HPA. But for CO2, I think definitely the data does suggest that there's some benefits to be had. So anyways, thank you for listening to my long-winded explanations, and thank you for watching yet another episode of the Experimental Zone. Peace out.